Well, I hope you've had a good morning looking at the future, and I think that's a really appropriate thing to do, because where I want to start this little clip is to just raise with you the fact that any buildings or major refurbishments that you're engaged in at the moment or about to get engaged in are really about the future. And that's highlighted by a quote from a guy called Stuart Brand, who wrote a book called How Buildings Learn. And he says, all buildings are predictions. And he goes on to say, all predictions are wrong. And there's enormous uncertainty in imagining what the future might be like and trying to design for the future. And that's really what you're being asked to do this afternoon. And I just want to talk to you about some of the things that might be useful and give you some context for that. So one of the things that might be useful is the concept of design itself. And I love the quote from Bang & Olufsen that says, design is but a language, and if you have nothing to say, it's no use to you. So hopefully from the work that you've done this morning, you'll have things you want to say, and I think you need to concentrate on using design to help you say those things. Also, I think it's very important that you try and imagine the design that you want to create. And a powerful tool for doing that is the idea of metaphor. Is what you're trying to create a petrol station or a hotel or a theatre and all the things that are associated with that? A library that's a theatre with actors in the theatre, for example. So I think being able to imagine and use metaphor are very powerful tools for what you're being asked to do this afternoon. And the heart of what you've been asked to do, I think, is about designing new spaces for thinking. I think we've gone beyond thinking about e-learning, teaching and independent study and group study as separate activities, but I think these are deeply blended activities. And the thing that helps blend them together is imaginative space. And I think the challenge for you this afternoon is to imagine what that space might be like. And don't forget, you can't expect old designs to perform in new circumstances. So it is important that imagination is at the top of your list of tools. There's a clear link between what people do in a space and how a space is designed. And there's even research to show that happiness is related to the space in which you're working. Spaces can help develop people's happiness. And in terms of what I talked about earlier, in terms of multiple intelligence and the fact that we're all different, what that says to me is that we need a variety of spaces in which we can work and learn. And we need to develop a learning environment that plays to difference. It recognizes differences and it enables us to be different, to be the person we want to be as a learner in the spaces that we inhabit. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with the work of Richard Florida. Richard Florida wrote a book called The Rise of the Creative Class. And he worked with people who work in creative professions and formed focus groups and asked them lots of questions about the things that they liked. And they liked experiences. Not so interested in goods and services, more interested in experiences. They're looking for an experiential lifestyle. And one of the things that Florida included in his book was the idea of a third place. A place that's not work and it's not home, but it's absolutely essential to the lives of creative people. It's the place where they go to mingle with other people, to meet new people, to have conversations and engage in conversational learning and develop their frameworks of understanding. And I think third places are taking hold in our 21st century society. And they started really in the retail sector. I noticed that Mercedes-Benz have now opened Mercedes World in the south of England. You'll all be familiar with Nike City. These are third places that people really relate to. And I think the challenge for us in developing our 21st century libraries in this digital age is to have third places that people will want to go to and want to engage with others and want to be members of and want to continually come back to. Because it's those third places that I think form the glue of a modern 21st century society. In the UK, we've been doing a lot of work with new learning spaces, and the Joint Information Systems Committee have some really useful tools that I'm sure you would be interested in. One of these is a booklet that came out in March 2006 called Designing Spaces for Effective Learning. And then in the spring of this year, in March 2007, we produced an info kit called Designing and Planning Technology-Rich Learning Spaces, and that's available from the JISC infoNet website. And in the autumn, there'll be a JISC publication called The Design and Management of Open Plan Technology-Rich Spaces. And I was involved in the work for that publication. And there's some interesting things that make it particularly pertinent to the work you're doing here today. So, for example, one of the things that we found out through questionnaire sent to all UK higher and further education institutions was that the sort of space that you've been thinking about today and the sort of space I've been describing as open plan technology rich, 91% of that type of space is in libraries and learning centres. And what that says to me is that libraries and learning centres are leading the change in terms of how we conduct ourselves in our universities, how we conduct learning in our universities. And I think there's a trend here that I'm sure you'll be aware of that goes from library to learning resource centre to learning centre to imaginative learning space. And another way of describing that is from the IT commons to the information commons to the social learning commons. And there are a couple of key ideas about the way space is changing. And what I just want to leave you with here is just a little thought, really, that says a good building isn't just about architecture. A good building is about ideas. And in the exercise you're going to do this afternoon, it's about using your imagination to come up with good educational ideas that translate into new types of spaces.